What is going on, guys? It's Jimmy from TP Game Boys here, and this is story time. Going to be doing a little bit of story sharing with you guys. Back in the day on the old TP Game Boys channel, back before we kind of quit, we would do a story time Sunday every Sunday, and I kind of want to get back into that. So this is a story time that isn't necessarily mine. It's actually a story that my mom used to always tell me about when she was around my age. She's a little bit younger in this story than I am now, but it's a really good story. It's one of my favorites that my grandpa and my mom always tell. It's a paranormal, spooky story. So I know we've missed the Halloween cutoff by a little bit, but it's still fall. Still a little bit of spooky stuff going on. Maybe some Ghost of Christmas Past type thing. But yeah, very spooky story, so strap in if you like that kind of thing. So this story takes place in the late 80s, early 90s. My mom is probably 21, 22 years old. She's just started dating my dad, who's probably 21, 22 years old. They're living in the south suburbs of Chicago. They live about 40 minutes from one another. One's kind of on like the west side, and somebody lives in like the south. My dad lives in the south suburbs. And to kind of set the story up, my grandpa sells real estate, commercial real estate, for a really big company. He makes a lot of money at the time. And they had recently, by recently I mean like the last like 6 years, had moved from Kansas City to Chicago. And my grandpa moved them around a lot. They moved from Kansas City to Chicago, and then a couple of different houses once they got to Chicago. But by this point, they're in my grandpa's last house that my parents lived in, or my mom lived in, my mom and my uncle. This was the last house that they would live in with my grandpa. So the last family house. And they're living in this house, and some weird shit just starts happening, right? There would be like super simple stuff, like a doorbell would ring and nobody would be there. And they're like, oh, it's just kids, you know, ding dong ditching or whatever. And then one day, like a smoke detector goes off and no one's there, right? Or a door would close and nobody's in that room. And at the time they had cats, and it was one of those things like, oh, maybe a cat's doing something. But it started getting weirder and weirder, where it would be like a cat would be like in a basement somewhere, and like something would happen so spookily that it was like, come on, that's not a cat. Like a plate would shatter like in a cabinet, and it was just, again, weird stuff was happening. And so my grandpa is like, yo, this is really fucking weird. We got to figure out why this is happening the way it's happening. So he bought this is going to kind of be dated, but like a motion sensor, and he put it in the room and he set it up with a camera. And long story short, if the motion sensor went off, he had one of his buddies come in and it was going to take a picture. And what happened was, one day my mom is home alone. My mom is, like I said, 21, 22 years old, and she's getting ready to go see my dad. Like I said, they just started dating, 21, 22. They're getting ready to go on a date, whatever. My mom's home, and again, it's the 80s, 90s. So picture like the Breakfast Club, like the radio by the bathtub, like she's washing her hair, like she's totally home alone. And she's getting ready, she's getting cleaned up, whatever. And the fucking motion sensor starts going off. Beep, 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 making this loud ass noise. My mom bolts up. She's like, what the fuck? Why is this motion sensor going off? And again, my mom is a woman home alone at like 20 years old. She's not thinking there's a spooky ghost in the house. She's thinking, oh my God, there's like a burglar or a robber or a murderer or whatever. Like she's like tweaking that it's a person, a human being here to commit crime or something, right? So she gets up, and it's a big house. My grandpa lives in this really big house. It's got a finished basement, workout room. There's a punching bag. There's hot tub. I mean, it's a huge house, right? So my mom like quickly gets up. She gets dressed, and she's like by the door of the bathroom, and she's listening, and she doesn't hear anything, right? There's no broken glass. There's no like footsteps. No one's rummaging through drawers like looking for money. She doesn't hear anything. She's like, what the fuck's going on? But she knows, like, well, if there is someone in the house, I'm not going to be able to go from the upstairs bathroom like outside quickly enough. And again, this isn't 2022. There's no cell phones. She can't just call 911. She has to get to the kitchen to do that, where the home phone is connected to the fucking wall. And she's like, I gotta get out of here. I gotta get out of here. So she knows that my grandpa was in the army. He fought in Vietnam. He's big into guns and things like that. So she knows under my grandpa's bed, there's a .357 Magnum underneath his fucking waterbed, because again, it's the 80s or 90s or whatever. So she literally is like, all right, I'm gonna open this door, I'm gonna fly over to his room, I'm gonna grab the gun, and I'm gonna run out to the car and drive over to Pete's house, my dad. And so my mom is looking, She bolts out the door, boom, kicks the door open, starts running. She gets down the hall, into my grandpa's bedroom, dives for the bed, grabs the gun, and runs back out and just starts like sweeping the house like it's a Call of Duty mission or something, right? She gets all the way down to the living room and the alarm, boop, 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 it's just going off. There's nothing. There's no ghost. There's no broken glass. There's nothing, right? So my mom puts the gun on the table and she writes a note for my grandpa. My grandpa still has the note. It says, "This house is fucking haunted. Underline, underline, Michelle," is all the fucking note says. So my mom gets in her car. She had like I think at this point, this is when she had her Trans Am. She had a white Trans Am with T-tops. And it was like, I don't want to say it was winter. It might have been like late fall. So it's cold. She drives over to my dad's house. Her hair freezes because she just got out of the shower. She didn't dry it. She didn't do anything. She gets over to my dad's house and she tells my dad. And my dad's like, well, let's go back. Let's make sure there genuinely wasn't anybody in the house. I'll come with you. And at the time, my dad was an athlete. Like, my dad was a really big guy. He wrestled. He played football. I mean, just super jacked guy. So he comes with her. Mama feels safer. They get to the house. They look around the whole place. It's empty. There's no one there. There's nothing there. My uncle, I don't know where he was at the time, her little brother, and my grandpa are all gone. No one's there. So they go up to the room with the motion sensor, and the motion sensor had gone off, and it had taken a picture. It had taken a photograph. And it was this little, like, I don't want to say Polaroid, but it was like film at the time. And so they got it done, or I might be missing a detail about how they got the photo. Maybe the photo was taken after the fact, or I don't know. But there was a photograph that they had got developed, and basically it was just like this big gray misty image like burned into the photograph. And it almost looked like somebody had gotten in the like the photo really quickly. Like, it almost looked like somebody had just appeared. It didn't look like somebody ran into the frame. It looked like somebody had literally, boom, appeared in the frame at such a high speed that they were blurry. That's what it looked like. It's just this gray image. And I wish I had the picture. I almost want to go to my mom's house and see if I could find it. But it's this gray blur right in the middle of the photo. And my mom's like, well, that's a fucking ghost, Pete. Like, that's a fucking specter right there. We can see it with our own eyes. And my dad doesn't believe in ghosts at all. He's like, yeah, whatever, Michelle. Let's go on our date or whatever. We'll show your dad later. So they go out to eat, whatever they do. They come back to my dad's house, or my grandpa's house, and they give him the photo. And my grandpa's like, what the fuck is this? This is so weird. Like, there was no one here. No one was here. So my grandpa's like, all right, now I'm creeped out. Because he was always, again, very skeptical of the whole ghost thing. So he's like, I'm going to call a medium, a psychic, to come into the house and look around, right? So they bring in this medium, this psychic, and she's like going around the room, like putting her hands on her head, whatever psychics do. I don't know. You know, maybe she had beads or something. I don't know, candles, a seance. I don't know. And she, long story short, is like, yeah, this house is haunted, but there's two energies here. There is a kind motherly energy, and then there's like an evil spirit. There's something very bad here as well. And my grandpa's like, come on, really? And the lady's like, yeah. And he does not like you, and points at my grandpa. And my mom looks at my grandpa and is like, see? Because my grandpa would like taunt these ghosts. Like, he'd like get in the hallways like in the middle of the day and like flicker the lights and be like, get out here, you spooky motherfucker, you ghostly bitch. Like, he'd say shit like that, like, get out here and show yourself. And like the lady like didn't know any of that. She's just like, yeah, the ghost is not like you, and him specifically. So that's when my mom was like, all right, maybe there's something to this. Maybe there is genuinely a fucking ghost in the house. So they're like, let's call the previous owners. Let's see, do they know something? Did something happen? Whatever. So again, my grandpa was the realtor, so he bought the house from the people. So he has their number. He calls them up. Hey, I hate asking this, but like, is this house fucking haunted? And like for several seconds, it's just silence on the phone. Like, it's dead silent. And like it's a man, it's an older gentleman. He might be, 55, 65. My grandpa at this point in time is probably 42, 43 years old, something like that. And the guy goes, yeah, my wife died in that house. And my grandpa's like, are you serious? He's like, yeah, my wife had a heart attack, a massive heart attack, and she died in the upstairs bedroom. And my grandpa says, like, the way he tells the story, he's like, every hair on my body stood up. He's like major freaked out, right? So apparently, and again, this is how the medium explained it. They bring the medium back, and the medium's like, yeah, like I can sense that, like it's a motherly spirit. It's like a woman, and she says, like, the motherly spirit is trying to ward off the evil spirit. We have to have the house cleansed. We need to bring in the previous owner. So the guy, the woman's husband, comes to my grandpa's house and like tells his wife, like, it's okay, you can leave, these people will be safe, like you can move on. And then they bring in a fucking priest. This story gets so crazy. They bring in an actual fucking priest, and the priest does like an exorcism on the house, like with holy water and like smoke and like the whole 9 yards. And he blesses the house, and he like tries to get the evil ghost to leave. And that's kind of where the story kind of ends, is after all this happened, after the husband came and told the wife to move on, and the priest came and he expunged the house, everything stopped happening. There were no more broken dishes, no more motion sensors, nothing. It all just kind of stopped all at one time. But yeah, that's the story of how my mom lived in a literal fucking haunted house growing up. And it wasn't much long after that her and my dad got married and they moved out. So maybe that had something to do with it. So maybe I should thank the ghost that they pushed my parents together a little more and they started a family. But I don't know, crazy. It's a crazy story. I'll see if I can find that photo. Maybe I'll upload it at some point. But yeah, that is Storytime Sunday, guys. As always, please click like down below. Don't forget to subscribe, ring the notification bell so you don't miss any videos, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.